Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're just on schedule, so we'll start now. First of all, I've got one or two domestic announcements. On the HSE, we're advised there are no fire alarms or anything this afternoon. So if you see me running out of the room quickly, I suggest you follow. Otherwise, we should have a quiet afternoon. Cell phones, mobile phones, please put to either silent or turn off out of respect to the speakers. In SIGTO meetings, we have a rule where if your phone goes off, you pay the drinks after the meeting. I don't know if I can quite enforce that here, but please, please have respect for the speakers. For this afternoon's proceedings, we have 3 papers, then a break. Each paper has a half-hour slot, and the speaker will speak for about 25 minutes, and there's 5 minutes Q&A after each paper. We'll also have a tea break at 10 to 4 for about half an hour. Anyway, the subject this afternoon, the use of LNG in transportation. It's a major subject. There's wide interest in it facing us going forward. And I'd just like to make a few comments, as it were, to set the scene. I don't think I need explain to the audience the advantages of why LNG is considered as a fuel from an environmental perspective, but I would just observe one of the strange things I find quite often speaking to regulators and things is there seems to be a disconnect between greenhouse gas issues and air quality issues. And in most cases, if you take measures to abate one, you increase the other. So measures to reduce environmental emissions, NOx and SOx, usually result in increase of greenhouse gas emissions somewhere else. Now, of all the solutions available, I think LNG is the only one where you actually get a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions and SOx, NOx, and particulates. Now, SIGTO, we've been quite engaged with this for a number of years, and we've actively involved in committees, in IMO, in ISO and things. And sometimes I get the feeling people regard us as being unhelpful or obstructive. Now, I'd want to dispel that myth. SIGTO and our members see the future, and we're working very hard for it. But there is one qualification I would make to that statement, and that is around safety. The current LNG industry has an exemplary safety record. LNG transportation, the first marine transportation was in 1959, and the first project started in the early 60s. So we've 50 plus years, getting on towards 60 years of safe transportation of LNG. And in that time, we can say there's been no fatalities caused by spillage of LNG. And that is really, when we talk about our safety record, where it comes from. We don't spill the stuff. Now, it might be somewhat controversial, but we did some research trying to assess fuel bunker spills. And it was a bit difficult to get data, but we did find an American paper which examined spills over 15 years. And in that, they recorded over that 15-year period something like 480 spills of 40 cubic meters and more. Now, that approach is just not acceptable when you're using LNG. We also attend various conferences, and I've heard people stand up and say, oh, LNG is just like cold diesel. Well, I'm sorry, it ain't. And another one just recently, I'm quite direct to one of my staff, was SIGTO rules are inconvenient. Now, I would stress SIGTO is not trying to impose the rules and practices from the large-scale industry on the small. I would accept they don't necessarily transfer, but we must have some equivalency. And if we let convenience start to override safety, I'm afraid we're on a slippery slope. But Looking forward from here, there are a lot of challenges, and I'm sure everybody in the room is going to work hard to get to a good solution. It's got to be a broad, collaborative effort. And I think there's just one other aspect I'd like to mention before we get to the papers. It also seems to me that as we develop these ideas, and particularly as they start to solidify, there should also be a parallel effort to start to talk to society, to the general public. Because I think if we start introducing these without, I'm not saying necessarily a mandate, but an understanding from the general public of what we're trying to do, if there is an incident, there would be a very severe reaction. Anyway, we have a range of speakers. I'm afraid it's the chairman's nightmare when you've only got two seats filled and 3 speakers, but I hope the third one will arrive. And I'll now actually pass over to introduce the first speaker. So the first speaker is Graham Bennett of DNV. He is based here in the UK and is Vice President of DNV in the UK. And can I invite you, Graham, to come and deliver your paper?